Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I'm actually reaching out to you from the beautiful Turks and Caicos after I've been in New York for the last 2 months. The last few episodes, we've been covering what's been going on in the Indian tech sector, and it's been extraordinary to hear all the innovation, some of which, frankly, is ahead of what we see in the West and in the US, which has been very enlightening and surprising. This week, we're going back in a way to our regularly scheduled programming with more unicorn founder guests. And this week, we have the privilege of being joined by Oskar Hartmann, who's been unicorn collector and creator over the years. And he's going to come here and share with us all of the learnings he's had over the last, over 2 decades of experience in the category. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 40, Oskar Hartmann, Unicorn Accumulator. So Oskar, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for this.
So why don't we start with just you giving a little bit of background on who you are and your unicorn story.
My unicorn. So I'm German, born in Kazakhstan and grew up in Germany, and moved a lot in my life, more than 30 times by the age I was 30, and lived in the US in '99. Where I discovered internet businesses for the first time. So when I moved back to Germany, I started to try to replicate some of the success stories I saw in the US, Starbucks and bodybuilding.com, online shops. So that were my first businesses that I founded during school. And that basically became a theme throughout my life. So one of the key kind of ideas is that everything that works somewhere will work everywhere. That's like one of the things I believed. And so I was doing a lot of business transfer, entrepreneurship to new markets. And I was very lucky. So basically after university, the first 10, I was always building a company and investing in the same business model in other geographies. So I was only investing in the business models which I knew extremely well. And since I created 10 companies myself, basically I invested in 10 different business models and ended up making 75.
Wait. So basically, just so we're clear, you find a business model you like, you build that business model, I guess typically in Germany, and then in the rest of the world, you then invest in that business model because you have expertise.
Yes, you have expertise, you like the business model, you like the founder, and then it's if you know if you like the founder and you like the business model, it's not that important to know the market that well, right? It's the risk. You have to take risk somewhere. So basically you take the market risk and you just say, look, okay, the population of India is very large. So this, it could work, it could not work, but we might as well try, right? But I was only investing in business models that I know very well, and the reason is also that you have almost no money, right? So you have to add some value. So when you start business angel investing, you have maybe tens of thousands of dollars or $100,000s, and it's very difficult to get into deals unless you can say, look, I was building the same thing. I know what you do. I know, I can add value at of the times people asked me to join the board, and so I could get a bigger stake, I guess, for small amounts of money. And it was also easier decision for me. I didn't have to screen. When I was building companies, I didn't have time to screen thousands of companies, right? So it was basically I met the entrepreneurs who do the same thing as me, mostly on conferences, and then I asked them if I can invest, and that strategy worked remarkably well, right? So out of 75 investments, basically I got 10 unicorns, 10 unicorn companies that from seed stage, basically from very early stage. And that was very successful. And basically I continued with this strategy after that, but more being a business angel saying, but it was the same approach. I was thinking which business would I like to build, and then but not building it and just investing, right? Just investing. So That's the approach I use at the moment. But I only invest in businesses which I would like to build
So let's
myself
take a
if I
step
would
back.
have infinite
What's the
time.
first business model you picked and what year and how did that go?
Yeah, that was the first business model I picked was I was a child. I was 17 years old, so I picked the. It was not like an MBA Harvard approach. It was like I saw what I liked. I liked bodybuilding, so I saw bodybuilding.com, and there was no online shop for bodybuilding products in Germany. So I created Pro Fitness Shop, which was a way for anybody in the village. You know,
Yeah.
Germany has a lot of population in villages. There's no way to buy creatine, protein, L-carnitine. So, and that business I built out of school, and basically it became a cash cow. I was making like $20,000 a month, which was making me very proud, and it was my first success experience where I could like work 1 month and then I could afford expensive vacation, or I could
And
afford to buy a
what
car.
year was that
But
in,
then
or
after
what years did that cover when you were 17?
that was that was 2000, but I didn't know, like I built my first business from
Mm,
2000 to 2003, and I didn't know. I was in business. I didn't know that there was
mm.
the bubble was bursting. I was not reading news. I was just like trying to make a living. I was just trying to build something. I was not aware at all that there was a tech bubble, that it burst, that it was the worst time in history for internet companies. I was just busy, running my thing, and I was doing everything myself. And it was so later I found out that I basically built my first business during the biggest crisis of internet in history. But never tried to raise money. I was just
Did you
unaware
read
of the
Tim
crisis,
Ferriss's
right?
4 Hour Work Week? Because it's actually funny that the one idea he recommends you go build at that time when he first published the book was like selling vitamins online because you can outsource most of the work. You could be as a one-man shop and make it very profitably.
So I guess I followed that recommendation. Yeah. But when I finished, but then I decided to go to university. I sold my business, and then I was so smart. So when I was after university, when I was choosing a business model, it took me a very long time because I was analyzing all the options. I had like a huge spreadsheet of hundreds of business models, and I was quite frankly confused and couldn't make a decision. So I said, the only reason I made a decision, I set myself a deadline. I said, I'm turning 25 years old. If 14th of May, that's the deadline. I have to make a decision no matter what. It's like, it doesn't matter. And that's what happened. Exactly on 14th of May, I just like had to decide. And back then there was the shopping club business model, the flash sale, e-commerce business model. So I started to build that. And that was a very fast growing business model, right? The flash sales allows you to grow incredibly fast because you don't have to plan the sourcing and to buy the product in advance. So the company grew from zero to $250 million in sales in 4 years, basically.
And so we're talking
That
what,
business model,
2005 more or less?
yeah, so that's like
2008,
2008 to
2012. Okay, and
2012, right? That was
just
after
so for
I
those viewers who don't remember, by flash sales we mean the French side like Vente Privée, or the US side that was Gilt or Privalia or companies like that.
and fab.com, which was using the same model but for furniture and everything design. And that also was the first unicorn, basically, where I became a shareholder. Fab.com was valued then 1.5 billion. But I was investing in Shukr.com in the Middle East, then in Germany, in India, Fashion and You. So all these investments, then Shukr was acquired by Souk, and Souk was then acquired by Amazon, which became the Amazon of Middle East. Fab.com I sold very successfully, and Fashion and You I also sold my stake to one of the VCs.
Wait.
So
Take a
all
step
these
back. What was the
investments
name of your
into Flash,
company, and which geography did you operate in?
it was
Okay, so you
completely
were
out of
okay. So you're
Moscow.
doing flash sales in the Russian market. Grew from 0 to 250 million revenues in 4 years. By the way, what was it like operating in the Russian market back then in like the late 2000s?
I mean, It was Russia was booming all the way up to the financial crisis. So I built my first business during the dot-com crash, and I finished university right at the financial meltdown of 2008. So basically, actually, the day I had my first sale was the day when the Lehman Brothers story happened, and I came home, and my wife was like, "Did you see the world is going under?" And I'm like, "Look, I just made my first 50 sales in one day. I'm very happy." you know. So basically, yeah, it was wild because Russia was in hyper growth all the way up until 2008, and it was an atmosphere of basically everything will work, everything is gonna improve. It's gonna be life is gonna be so much better in 10 years. It was very optimistic. It was very entrepreneurial. It was super. It
Yeah.
was a little bit like Dubai's now. It's like everybody believes that the future will be better, and it was a good environment. And obviously, then the financial crisis happened. It changed a lot of things. But being in e-commerce back then, e-commerce
Yeah.
was so tiny, right? It was like when we back now, e-commerce was so small in 2008. It was like compared to what it is now, but it was very predictable that it was 100% predictable that what happened will happen. Like it was clear from the trend line. So we were building e-commerce, and I was very quick to create the second company, which was the Zappos business model, Zapato. So I
Wait.
created the
The
flash
Zappos
sales, and
business
then
model you
the
created while you were building the QPVIP or afterwards from a sequential perspective, or?
it was a little bit in this
Hmm.
like 2010. 2008 I created the flash sales model, and 2010, 2 years later, I wanted to create the full price model
Yeah.
inside the flash sales, but the advisory board rejected that idea, and they asked me to put this idea separately, because back then there was a big, like, fab.com was moving to full price and to full assortment, like the
Yeah.
Amazon of design. And there was a big discussion: is that needed? Is there a future for the flash sales model or not? And my board decided that the company should be separate, and so it was a separate company with the Zappos business model, selling only shoes and only full price, the new collections. And that company was acquired very fast. It was like 16 months old, and then the Amazon acquired Zappos. And when Amazon acquired Zappos, the Russian Amazon, Ozon, said, "Who is doing Zappos in Russia?" And following the M&A strategy of Amazon, acquired my company Zapato, and it was like a $75 million deal, and I got 3%, almost 3% of Ozon as part of the
Wait, let's pause here
transaction.
for a second, because I think there are a lot of interesting lessons already along the way here, in the sense that how did the private sales business, like flash sales business, end up playing out? Like, because if I'm not mistaken, most of them kind of went under, or the Guild.com, Fab.com, etc. And yet somehow you successfully made money out of these transactions. So it'd be interesting to hear A, what happened to the business, B, how you navigated and made sure you made money. And like, I think Fab.com went from 1.5 billion to zero in value in 6 months, and how you managed to make money out of that.
It
And then
was
we can talk about like Ozone and I think what you called your $300 million mistake.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the flash sales ended badly. The business model basically at the end was not scalable to the same level as e-commerce, broad e-commerce. So most of the flash sales, they grew very fast to 100 million turnover, or 200, or like whatever the market size was. And then there was basically a plateau for almost everybody. There's like some constraint in the
Mm.
business model, because you don't have reliable inventory, you have ever changing inventory. And also the broad e-commerce was growing very fast, and it was also price competitive. So it was already clear to me in 2010, 11, that this business model will be limited, and we have to be much broader. So I wanted
Yeah.
to create full price. I wanted to create different vehicles. So I opened the GSI commerce, the services business model, where we were opening shops for other brands, and that became successful and profitable. And I started opening a lot of
Did you sell
verticals for
QPVIP,
full
or what
price.
happened in
But basically,
QPVIP?
I sold most of my stake by 2017. Then the company was acquired by Yandex and then again thrown out by Yandex, and it ended basically now. There's
Is Vente
basically no
Privé
future for
doing
this
okay
company,
still in
obviously. But
France or Privalia and the rest of Europe, or is the category dead?
I mean, no, Von Privé was for a very long time the biggest e-commerce company basically, and that gives you traffic. And when you have so much traffic, they started to do travel, and it started to be much broader. And they have a very strong core business model. They were always profitable, and I think. But Showroom Privé, after they went public in France, the stock crashed very much. So this business model, there's only a few exceptions. The ones that pivoted, right, like Snapdeal in India, they transformed the business to something else. And Groupon basically killed the business model finally when the Groupon crash happened, right? Like it was like this fastest company ever to go to 1 billion, and then kind of there were like 50,000 copycats in the world, and there were like 99.99% of them died, and that basically
Okay, so it's a good way to get started, to get scale, but
able,
then you need to find a better business model.
and that was also the problem at Fab. Fab grew extremely fast to 100 million and then got extreme high valuation and pressure to grow further. But I already knew that the flash sale will not scale that far, right? So I had like a little bit of insider knowledge, and I thought that the average order value is very low, and they were offering free worldwide delivery and things like that. So the unit economics was really bad. So for that reason, I decided, when they were valued at 1.5 billion, I had the buyer come into my office. The company was so hot, I had the guy fly to me, come to my office, and he came like with a pipe, and he said, I want to make a deal right now, like right here, right now. And he offered me 650 million valuation, so more than a 50% discount. And I accepted.
Good for you.
I accepted, and I sold.
And you sold 100%, or you kept some because you never know?
Yes. I sold 100%, and I actually offered everybody I knew to sell with me, but nobody accepted the same conditions as I accepted. So only me and the founder, Jason, got some cash out as part of the deal. So it was two people who made money from that transaction.
One of the lessons you tell me in secondaries is the point of maximum secondary liquidity is when you don't want to sell. And this is a counterexample. This is the point of maximum secondary liquidity in Fab, and you did want to sell. So, you know.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But it's like the childhood trauma, right? And I could have been wrong. I could have been wrong. I mean, the idea was to build the Amazon for design. The vision was extremely big. The business plan was extremely ambitious. But what happened, that the sales completely plateaued, and the market went up like fourfold. And that basically killed the company very quickly. And unfortunately, I think it could have. But when the business model stopped working, they still had 300 million in cash. But that was an opposite example of my point, that sometimes you have this companies go into like hype mode, and then you have so much liquidity for your shares secondary, and oftentimes it's a bad timing to sell. When you have when you have the maximum liquidity, sometimes you know, like like I had this childhood trauma, because I was still hoping that the company would do well. Like, Fabrice, I have to tell you how emotional I was. I was feeling so bad about the failure of Fab.com that I donated most of the money that I made to charity. So I had the idea that it's not good to make money from a failing company to be successful. So I donated a large portion of it for a scholarship program for talented people.
First of all, congratulations on the exit. Also, congratulations on, you know, on being so generous and helping the people out there. And we have actually many people in the chat that are commending you. We have Jimmy Egas saying congrats on like the analysis of the markets and the timely exits. Mishba saying great exit, Oskar. Actually, we have a question from one of the viewers. Ravi is asking, what's the best way to pitch you a startup?
Yeah, it's to tell a
No, no,
great
but I guess
story.
how do they
Tell a
how do
great
they
story.
reach you? Is it like LinkedIn, or do you have a website, or?
The best way, I think the best way is always an introduction. I know so many people. I think I have 25,000 contacts in my phone. So there's a lot of who can introduce. I'm very social. So there's a lot of people that can introduce you to me. And I'm looking at a lot of investments, obviously. And I think the best way is to do an introduction. If that doesn't work, I guess you can try cold via LinkedIn or
Okay.
email or whatever. But my
Sure.
contacts are
So okay,
all
so the
out there.
second big, well, third big company you're building is the Zappos, which you sell to Ozone. So you call Ozone your $300 million mistake. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing story, right? The Russian Amazon. So I became a shareholder because the deal was half cash, half shares, and the company was having a very hard time because Russia was cash on delivery. Russia had a lot of it was very expensive logistics for the small average order values, and it was very challenging. The company was always the same as Amazon. The company was never, but it didn't have the access to capital as Amazon, right? So it was always struggling from round to round. And then by 2018, the company was 20 years old. The company was you can imagine the founder had left the company like 15 years ago. The original founder, right? It had changed several times in owners, so there was no founder in place. It was basically venture capital, private equity owned, and it was not growing for several years and highly unprofitable with broken unit economics. And I just and then a new guy came in who wanted to buy up a lot of the shares, and I sold my shares at a very low valuation. It was about 100 million valuation, right? And they brought in a new CEO who was not a founder, who was a hired CEO. He got incentivized with shares. But I just could not imagine a scenario where a company, after struggling for 20 years, and I was an insider, I knew the industry, I knew all the competitors, I knew everything. And I just couldn't think of a scenario where you would have a manager come in and turn the company around as much as he did. Like 36 months later, the company was
Wow.
valued 12 billion. It was like the most credible turnaround I have ever witnessed. It was like it was unbelievable. The Alexander, the CEO, he's a star. He was a CTO before, so he came from technical background. And basically, I sold my shares, and 36 months later, the company went public and was valued 12 billion.
That's really impressive.
So
How much are they worth today?
now nobody knows how much they're worth, right? Their
Okay.
shares are blocked. So I think the official market cap is 2.5, but
Yeah.
it's not a fair price or a real price. So I guess it was a small window of opportunity but it was incredible story actually. And the strategy that led to the turnaround was going back to the Amazon basics, right? So Alexander came in and he said, whatever we are doing that Amazon is
Yeah.
not doing, we will stop. We will stop doing everything. And whatever Amazon is doing that we are not doing, we will start doing. And so he opened the marketplace
Yeah.
business
Amazon
model. He opened
Prime,
everything that
Marketplace.
and and the company yes, and the
So,
company
so
went
okay,
through the roof.
so then you sell the Zappos site business model to Ozone. What's the next business model you get to, and in what year, more or less?
Yes, and then there was I got pitched by a German entrepreneur, like immigrant. I like to invest in immigrants because I was an immigrant all my life myself. And he saw Aramis after in France, which is not a big company. It's like I think it was 150 million euro company which is doing used car trading and buying, and they wanted to do the same in Germany, and that company became Auto One at the end, right? So I was their first investor. I gave them the first money to start working. and out of one became so fast growing that I was just like, I was so impressed. It was like on month 12 they were doing 1 million a month, and then on month 24 they were doing 10 million per month. It was like it was like insane, uh, and I asked them what their international strategy was. If they and they said, we will focus on Europe. We will focus on Europe. So I asked for their permission. I said, can I invest in other countries for the same business model? And they said, okay, it's fine. Actually, we looked
Yeah.
at some investments together.
No. I'm the idiot who passed on auto
then
one
I
at the
ended up
seed because the valuation was like 24 million. And I thought it was too expensive relative to traction. I think, or the A, one of those two rounds. Oops.
I have a great story on valuation, Fabrice. So Hakan was pitching me a 4 point. I was investing 200,000 euros, and he was pitching me to get 5%, right? So it was like almost a 5 million valuation. So I thought that's very high because it was pre-seed.
Yeah.
They didn't have a PowerPoint. So I said, look, Hakan, I think 5 million is too much. I think it should be 3 million, because 3 million back then was the seed valuation. And then he told me, look, Oskar, if I agree to 3 million, that's a 40% discount. That means you have invested in an entrepreneur who loses in negotiations 40% of the value. So that means you're investing in a guy, in every round in the future, he will make compromises, he will lose value. Do you really want to invest in an entrepreneur who is so bad at negotiations? So I said, no, I don't, and I invested.
Good for you. Okay, so then you're like, I like this model. They're only doing Europe. I want to do the rest of the world. So did you build it? Did you invest in it? And which geographies did you end up doing?
Yeah, so I made a map of the world with like 5 factors that influence this business model, and then there was a rating. Japan was first, and then like US was out of question, and a lot of the countries. Yeah, so then we did Dubai for the Middle East, which became Sell Any Cars, also extraordinary successful. It's not a unicorn yet, but I think it's on the way. Then I ended up investing in Cars 24 in India, and also Spinny, which was on your channel recently. And I was investing in all kinds of weird countries like, Nigeria and Pakistan and Mexico, Brazil, Instacaro.
Yeah, we did that one together.
I think we did
it may still play out well, actually.
Yeah, that's true. And then I looked at Japan, and there was nobody in Japan doing this business model, which was the live auction. It became completely different from Aramis after. It became like you auction the car before you buy it, right? You don't buy cars, you auction them off like instantly, live auction. And nobody was doing that model in Japan. So I moved to Japan, I moved to Tokyo, and I built this business model in Japan from zero. Then we raised money from Mitsui, then Rakuten invested, and eventually acquired the company in Japan. So I had this experience of building a company in Japan from zero. It was not a success, Fabrice.
That was Car Price, right?
Very tough.
We were investors in that with you.
Car Price Japan. So, we barely made our money back in Japan, but at least the company is now under.
Very hard for Gaijins to like succeed in Japan. I mean, what did you learn about doing business in Japan?
Yeah.
Actually, Jimmy just asked the question on the chat.
I thought that the startup environment is very tough for startups because the culture is not very welcoming for new things. People like to do the things the way they were done, right? So customers are very difficult to switch over. It's a very high acquisition cost, and it's very difficult to do B2B. You have experience like you just want to buy phones, and the companies will not deliver you phones because your company is less than 3 years old, right? They would just not sign a contract, and it was very difficult to get an office. So I called my friend who was head of international at WeWork. like in order to get an office in Japan, you needed 2 signatures of people who give full guarantees the rent will be paid for 12 months at least. So 2 people have to guarantee, 2 local Japanese people, that if the startup fails, they will pay
Yeah,
12
that's
months the
completely
rent
crazy.
forward, right?
And did you
And
speak Japanese?
I called. No, I didn't speak. Oh, I was speaking English all the way, but I had Japanese co-founders, 3 co-founders, Japanese, which were very strong. So I didn't have any illusions that I will build this business for a long time. So it became eventually a
So what
full
do you think of the
Japanese
Auto One
business.
business
Yeah,
model? Is
but
it working, or are the unit economics working? Is Auto One doing well, or?
yeah, I think that, I mean, Auto One at its peak was again 12 billion. So it became a decacorn, not even a unicorn. Uh, Frontier Car Group was sold to Naspers, and Cars 24 became very successful in
And you
India.
were an investor
Spinny
in Frontier
became
Car
very
Group as
successful
well?
in India, but that, yeah, I was an investor in Frontier as well. Yes, and the business model it works very well. The question is, how much is it worth? Like when it was valued, 4 times GMV, it was probably too much. But now when it's valued like 20% of GMV, it's probably too low. And then Carvana happened. Carvana valuation went to 50 billion, and everybody started to build the Amazon for
Yeah,
cars, the Carvana business model, which was making most money from used car credit, right?
correct.
It was not making money from trade margin. And everybody was saying that the Auto One business model is outdated and the Carvana business model is now the thing to be. But then Carvana crashed from 50 billion to, I think, 3 billion or whatever it is now. And now the question marks are very big. So the main question mark, Fabrice, is what is the OEM's position for the car market of the future? And the OEMs have not decided themselves, right? Will all OEMs go to the Tesla
Yeah.
model, direct to consumer, and lock customers in, or will there be still a role for dealers, for other people in the supply chain? That is the main question for
Multiple
Auto One.
questions for you. One question for Constantine. How much time do you give a company to validate the business model? To make sure the unit economics work, to make sure that there's a business there? And does it even matter? I mean, it feels like Ozone, it didn't work for 20 years, or, the Fab.com, it never kind of worked, and you still can make a lot of money because you can grow quickly.
And there's always these miracles, I call them miracle exits sometimes. It happens, But my opinion is year 7, if you are not on good track to become profitable by year 7, it's becoming a pain. It's becoming a big problem, usually, right? For most I invest a lot in marketplace business models like you. If you expect, you get so much more value for
Yeah.
free once you're big. Your first priority should be to become big, right? Like once you're big, people just bring you more and more money. You just get so much value. So it's a mistake to try to fix the unit economics too much in the first 3 years, 4 years. The goal is to become big as fast as possible. Unfortunately, because that's where you burn a lot of money, right? Like I burned so much money in marketplaces where you try to get to the scale, but it doesn't work. So I would say I'm very patient, but I do want to see positive unit economics quite early before massive investments. And I do think that companies should strive to become profitable by year 7 or 8. I think that's a good target for
Other
entrepreneurs.
question. So Auto One, you're like absolutely not in the U.S. Why was that? I mean, it's very. There's been actually a fair amount of examples of ideas from Europe brought to the U.S. that works, but this one, you're like, no, it's not going to work.
Auto One came to the US. They did the market exit, but it was similar to Japan. It was similar to the thing that we underestimated in Japan and in the US, that there's already an offline marketplace. In Japan, it was USS, and in America, it's Mannheim Group. And these offline marketplaces, they seem so ineffective because you have to bring the car there, to park it, to move it, and all these things that you don't have to do in digital. But because they have liquidity, these companies have so much liquidity. Mannheim is a $60 billion company. So when you have that much liquidity, people are ready to take. I think you can punch them in the face on the entrance to Mannheim, and they will still come. Like they will still go, even if you punch every single
and marketplaces, liquidity trumps
they
everything
still
else. And so the existence of offline B2B markets that were liquid and worked obviously meant that you didn't really need an online one. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you then exited those businesses, you sold them, and so that takes us to what year? And what was the next business model?
Yeah, so the next business model was the food delivery. So basically, I found this startup in a small city in Germany called Münster. It's a city of 120,000 people. And there was this startup there delivering everything liquid, so water and whatever is liquid. So like in Germany, it's called Getränkemarkt. So there's separate grocery and separate liquids stores. And it was doing a 90-minute delivery. So you can order and they promise to deliver within 90 minutes. And they pick up all the old stuff you have at your house. They pick everything up and they bring you the new things. And this company had a market share in Münster of 25%. So 25% of everything liquid in Münster was delivered by Flaschenpost. And it was doing €1 million turnover in one little city, and it was EBITDA profit.
Wow,
3%
super impressive.
EBITDA.
And which year are we talking about here?
We are talking about 2016, and it was from 16 to 17. So I was so impressed by this company. I have never seen, a market like in Germany. You have 200 cities like Münster. So it's not very hard to imagine that you take this company from Münster and just replicate to 200 other cities like Münster. So 1 million times 200 is 200 million, right? And you don't have to think work in India or will this work in Pakistan, right? You just, if it worked in Münster, will it work in Freiburg? It's a very easy decision, So basically that's why I made my biggest investment in my life. I was so in love with the founder. I was so in love with the performance, so I invested 5 million euros in this company of personal money, and I bought a big stake, and that was basically the start of the quick commerce boom that we saw play out in the last 4 years, right? So Flaschenpost, basically what happened was exactly as predicted. They went to 25 cities, they saw the same numbers, and they didn't even have time to expand to 200 cities, because when they showed the same results on 25 cities, they were acquired for $1 billion by Dr. Oetker. Dr. Oetker was one of the biggest food producers and specifically beer producers in Germany. And they have a very cash-rich business. And they acquired Flaschenpost as a B2C, basically as a direct-to-consumer channel, and bought the company for $1 billion.
Wow, congratulations. Another amazing exit. Another unicorn.
Yes, that was another unicorn. And this was a real unicorn, right? Because it's 1 billion,
cash.
Not a share deal, it was a real exit to a final purchaser who had the vision for the company. But that was the biggest trade sale in the history of Germany, the biggest trade sale for cash, and it triggered like an all-out hype, right? Like then you had companies like GoPuff in the US, and then you had Getir in Turkey, who developed more organically, and then you had, similar to Groupon and similar to the flash sales business model, you had people all over the world started doing what's called instant grocery delivery, like 15 minutes, very quick. You just press a button and the courier said, so you deliver one order at a time. It was a new form of e-commerce. You don't do routing, you just deliver one package at a time.
I mean, in a way that makes sense, right? Like the internet has always been about quicker, better, faster. I think the issue here is you had a massive capital war with all these people sort of attacking this category simultaneously. But do you believe in the long-term viability of the model? I mean, we've seen massive retrenchment, right? Like massive people with firings, and everyone from Getir to GoPuff to Joker are undergoing massive transformation and restructuring. Or like, do you believe in the model? Is it here to stay, or what's your perspective here?
Definitely. So I think the business model is definitely not as good as everybody was acting in 21. It's not that good because there were literally like $1 billion per month invested in this business model. It was insane. But it's definitely not as bad as everybody is acting right now. Because I think if this business model would be a public company, it would be down 98%. It's the most worst hit ever business model. Like it's completely dead. You can pitch 400 investors, you will get zero like people going into your data room, no matter what your unit economics are. But I made a big mistake on Delivery Hero because I saw them very early, and back then I said I was very focused on AOV. In e-commerce, I thought AOV is the key driver, and they had such a low AOV. I said this can never work, and then obviously it became a 20. I saw the company at 4 million valuation. And I went to their office, I spent time.
I invested a $2 million pre in Delivery Hero on a PowerPoint at the very, very, very beginning. And I kept it. The problem is I kept it also in the last 12 months. My shares are down, I don't know, 95% or something ridiculous. So it was like, I mean, obviously relative to investing at $2 million pre, it's way up. But relative to a $30 billion company, oh my God, it hurts. I had like tens of millions of dollars of shares, and it's like, I think I've lost it $1 million now.
But it's not as bad as everybody.
Very bullish.
So I think this business model, makes me bullish. I was invested in this company in Canada, and the guys did a great job, and they started charging for delivery. They just started charging the full cost. It's just like $5 per delivery. And the demand didn't go down that much. The demand went down like 20%. So I think the free delivery is a stupid idea. I think when you will charge the full operational cost to the customer, there's still going to be maybe half the market, right? It's going to be small. It's going to be a niche market, but it's going to be there for sure. I mean, it's too good. The experience for the consumer is too good. It's absolutely crazy. Just push a button, and sometimes it takes 7 minutes.
You're so delighted that for short tail SKUs, it makes so much sense. To me, it like falls in line with the future of the internet, right? The internet to me is faster, cheaper, better. This is all three at the same time. It's going to happen. Maybe it doesn't happen now. Maybe it'll take a while to figure out the unit economics and density and for the competitive dynamics to play out. I think the issue, if you think of Flash and Post, the reason that they were profitable, there was only one. And we go to New York a year ago, and we had like 9 competitors going after the market, all with amazing teams, all with money. The market didn't support 9 competitors because we're 1 or 2. And as this plays out in the coming few years, I think we're going to have a massive category. I mean, in the US, grocery is $550 billion a year. Do I think this can take a big chunk of that? Absolutely. So I'm actually very bullish, despite the fact that so much cash has been incinerated. And I still hope that there's a good outcome here.
I'm also bullish, but sometimes in venture you have this effect where one company, like WeWork, right? It crashed an entire industry. Like Gorillas, you can have one psycho company, and Gorillas went and showed the market. The numbers were so bad that it became like FTX is now. FTX, it's like it becomes like the Enron moment, right? But it's not really fair to all the entrepreneurs that were building the companies properly, especially in developing economies. Like you have this business model everywhere, in Brazil, in Africa, in Thailand, in Indonesia. They have completely different unit economics, but they have no chance.
Look, I was looking at Delivery Hero versus Just Eat. And Just Eat has like horrible unit economics, not a great company. Delivery Hero, amazing, leader in historic countries, amazing everything. And both are down the same amount. And I'm like, everything's correlated to one on the way down in food right now, and frankly in tech writ large, and people are throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It'll come back. It'll take a while though, but it'll come back.
Well, I invested in 10 markets, so we are bankrupt in 7 out of 10. So we still have 3 left. So Japan is still alive. Japan is the biggest convenience market in the world, and now we have the same situation as Flash and Post. It's only one company
Okay,
left.
so you're left in Japan,
just
in Canada, and I guess Flash and Post is still around.
No, Canada, even though they turned the unit economics profitable, but none of the investors cared. Nobody even went to check the data room. It was so Canada is dead. We're still very successful in Germany with Flink. So after we sold Flash and Post, we immediately invested in the same business model for groceries, and the company is called Flink, and I think it's the fastest growing. It might be the fastest growing company in the history of Germany. It was. I mean, it's really and it is a good business. So Flink is doing everything properly, but they're also obviously affected by the market situation. So I'm still alive in Germany. Unfortunately, the situation is really. I mean, we are laughing because Fabrice, you and I, we know that failure is part of the game. But for the founders who are inside this, it's a real tragedy, right? So I have the founder in UK had a heart attack following a failed fundraiser.
That's so sad.
In India, it's the same. I have a founder in India also. Two people out of my portfolio had heart attacks, and I just really hope that entrepreneurs should. I mean, how can you know? I know it's hard. I was there myself, but somehow you have to not take it so personal, because this market downturns, they just
it's not your fault. Everything's correlated to one on the way up in the bubble, and everything's correlated to one on the way down in the crash. And yeah, I agree with you. Don't take it personally. A few questions. In fact, the reason people fail is not usually your fault. It's like you didn't find product market fit, or you fell off with your competitor, or your co-founder, or the markets just are bad. Period. It's very rarely, like the one thing you did that killed the company. A few questions from the audience. Mishba is asking, what are some unpopular sectors that you're looking to invest in currently? What makes you believe these sectors will be growing in the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, I think it's property tech, right? At the moment, because the interest rates are going up, all investors in the world just said we will not touch anything with real estate. But the real estate industry and the construction industry, it's the biggest industry in the world, right? It's the biggest, and it's the least digitalized. So I believe that, the $300 trillion of real estate that exists in the world, like 20 or 30% of this real estate is managed horribly. Like it's a complete mismanagement. Old systems, like it's very bad. Everything has to be fixed. So I invest in new technologies, in I call it operating systems for real estate. How do we own and manage portfolios of?
Do you know the companies like Belong or Mind in the US?
Yeah, I know these companies. I'm not invested there. I'm invested in June Homes, for example, which I think is a fantastic company. And I just recently invested in the same business model in Australia and the same business model in Europe. And these companies are right now, I think, strongly under two things. The WeWork mantra, like everybody, like WeWork was saying, we are a technology company that just happens to do real estate. And then the market said, no, you are just a real estate company. You're just a real estate management company, and the real estate management companies are worth 3 times EBITDA, and you have no EBITDA, so basically that's it. So I think but the mantra treats a lot of companies unfairly, right? There's actually a lot of companies doing this business model profitably, and doing it well, and it works. And the same time, with the interest rate going up, a lot of property tax are basically killed, and I think it's wrong, because not all of them depend on the interest rate. So I think property technology is one of the most overlooked segments of the industry, and I think there's a lot of marketplaces to be built, construction marketplace, construction material marketplaces, and real estate, just like the way, for example, the multi-family homes in the US, the way they are managed. It's just a bad experience for everybody. Everybody is unhappy. The net promoter score
Yeah,
in the
it's because
industry are like
basically all your interactions are offline. People never reply. Getting anything done is really, really hard. Yeah. Two questions from Ravi. Are you sector agnostic in your investments? Do you have any preferred sectors? And what is your average check size for seed investments?
So I think about sectors, I think I want my portfolio to be a little different from the global economy, right? If you look at the global economy, there's just like, financial products or financial technologies, banking is one of the biggest business models in the world, right? Like, so I definitely invest a lot in fintech now. I used to be, like I said, I used to be less smart. I was just doing what I saw and not analyzing, but now I'm analyzing, right? So fintech is a big industry and it's a big business model. Money is a good product. Everybody wants money, so it's a good product. Then real estate
Yeah.
is just so big. It's too big to ignore. And then you have obviously all the retail segments, automotive, fashion, all the big, the way the world works. You might like it or not. The only industry that I have a hard time is health technology, because I know the health as a percentage of world GDP is growing very fast, but I have a very hard time to invest in health because it's much dependent on regulators, right? Every country is not different because the people are different, but every country is
I
different because
understand.
the regulations are different, right? People are the same everywhere, but so I have a hard time in health tech, but I do not invest in business models which are too niche, right? Because I invest a lot in developing economies like Nigeria, Kenya, all the countries in the world which have a large population, and I don't see a point to invest like in a new yoga mat
Then, if you're going after a
producer that
market that
makes
is smaller by default, you might as well go. I mean, the country. You might as well go for a big vertical like finance or real estate. That makes a lot of sense. So, what's your
that is
average
one of
check
that is
seed
one
size?
of
I'm sorry.
just one my biggest learning is just sorry. I think one of my biggest learnings as an entrepreneur and investor, and I'm 100% convinced of this. It's absolutely equally difficult to build a huge business and a small business. There is no difference in difficulty
Absolutely.
at all. There's no difference in effort.
I don't know. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
sorry
It's as
for
hard to build a small business
interrupting.
as a big business, so might as well go and build a big business. 100% agreed. Um, so what's your average check size for seed investments?
I think in the last 5 years it was something like
Okay.
300, four hundred
And
thousand
yeah.
dollars. But it's the average. The average. I think I do some high conviction bigger bets. So in seed stages I do 100 or
Okay.
200,000.
What is your secret sauce for success in your investments? Do you plan or do you have a plan on how your legacy and how you want to be remembered by future generations?
I think I only have two secret sauce. The first thing I make this, I think it's all about action, and I make decisions very fast. I take risk. That's the first. The second, believe that not many people share for some reason. I keep seeing all these people that don't share this belief. I believe everything that worked in one place will work everywhere. Like if infra market worked in India, I think the same business model will work in Brazil. And most of the time I'm wrong, but 50% of the time I'm right. But this gives me like infinite opportunities. This belief gives me so much to do. While a belief that nothing will work, a lot of people, like when you speak to people in Brazil, they say this business model will not work here because we have a gray market, and this will not because of that. It's always everything is different. When you believe everything is different, you find no opportunities. When you believe everything is the same, you find infinite opportunities. Infinite. It's almost like you don't have enough hours in the day. I think you share this belief as well. That's how you made 900 investments. I think you couldn't have done 900 investments
Absolutely.
if you
People
wouldn't
are the
share this
same, right?
belief.
Like everyone wants to be entertained, everyone wants to have a sense of purpose, everyone wants to communicate, and that's a true underlying human condition or human need globally. And it doesn't matter if you're in Pakistan or Nigeria or the US or France, you want these things. And so things that have a tendency to work in one country have a tendency to work in the others. Now, of course, there are adaptations and nuances, but yeah, this is the way I built my first few companies like you, right? Like I took ideas from the US, brought them to Europe, brought ideas from Europe and Asia, brought it to the US. And it's no longer the core of what we do. Now we mostly do business model innovation in the US, but it's still a large part, especially when we invest outside of the US. It's mostly adaptations. I wouldn't say copies, adaptations for the local market. So I totally believe that. I mean, as Jimmy Egges said, the quote you use is people are people. And I agree. People are the same everywhere.
People are people. And then now I have 4 unicorns in India. And, I don't know India that well. And a lot of people are like, how is that even possible? How can you have 4 unicorns while most investors in India, like I think I'm the top 5 business angel in India, right? How is that possible? The only advantage I have is that I was one of the few who believed everything will work in India.
Totally agree.
Like,
and by the way, I'm so bullish on India right now. I think they've put in all the infrastructure rails required to make this market very, very big. And so we're all in on India right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I go by population. I think every country with a growing population eventually will figure it out. It's a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
A big population. I mean, you have to do a lot of mistakes to mess that one up. So I'm also big on India. I'm also big on Africa. Of course, US is the holy grail of entrepreneurship. But in terms of legacy, what I want to leave behind, I dedicated my life best ideas in the world spread faster, right? And not only in for-profit. I did exactly the same approach in non-profit. It's amazing how much value you can create if you just look what are the most successful non-profits in the world, and they mostly work only for one region, right? And then you create the same for another region and it works. Like I saw there's a company called it's an organization called Hand in Hand in India. They have 10 million women participating. And was a company Pro Mujer in Mexico with the same business model with 2 million women. So we created the same for CIS region.
I donate to
Pro
Mujer and organizations like that as well. So we're very aligned in terms of promoting micro enterprise and female entrepreneurship in emerging markets.
And I created this organization because there was none to give money to, and it became the fastest. It's now in 285 cities. It's like 50,000 women. It's unbelievable. And somehow I became the founder of this women leadership organization, which is a kind of strange, but somehow these ideas are not spreading themselves, Fabrice. I wish the good ideas would spread themselves, but you need channels like your
well, that's what entrepreneurs are for, right?
Ideas.
Like
that's why I'm on this.
We see problems and we see opportunities and we go after them. We fix the problems. We attack extractive business models, broken user experiences, and we pursue the opportunities presented to us. I mean, that's the core of entrepreneurship, and that's what's been driving human development and economic growth for the last 200 years. And so, it's founders writ large.
Yeah, and that's also what I love about business angels, because there's a global network of business angels. And business angels, unlike VCs, we don't compete at all. Like 60% of your most successful investment will come from your angel network. Fellow angels always introduce you to opportunities. A lot of success stories from my portfolio came from my university alumni organization, right? But I think, right now I'm building a club, to just connect all the most successful business angels in the world to be together and to share ideas, to share investment opportunities. I think, there's no competition at all. So business angels are really, really important for the global ecosystem of entrepreneurship and everything. And, we have been working with you since, more than 10
Oh
years.
yeah, I know.
And how many ideas have we
Countless
exchanged?
ideas.
It's amazing, right?
So after the
Yeah.
the food businesses, are you working in that global group of angels, or is there any business in between, or maybe the real estate businesses, did we miss anything between before we get to
Yeah.
what are you up to right now?
Yeah, so I did a lot of non-profit work, Fabrice, but I think your channel is not the best to discuss entrepreneurship development and all this talent leadership. But I think I was and I am in love with property tech. I did a lot of investments there, and I think at the moment,
Yeah.
neo banking, so new ways, credit led, different. I mean, I think there's a lot of consumers and companies in the world which are very unfairly treated by banks. I mean, it's this opportunity is still so early, right? And you can build such a big business even in small geographies, right? I have right now an investment in Azerbaijan, and the company is just it's so big
Yeah.
because the business model is so big. You can when your when your business model is so big, you
Absolutely.
can be in a very
Banking is
small
25%
country,
of GDP
right?
in most countries. It's huge.
Yeah, and you have a new bank in Brazil, but you don't have it in many other countries. You don't have a good neo bank in Vietnam, in
Yeah.
Philippines, in big countries, but not even to speak about small countries, right? There's a lot, so there's a lot of opportunity there. A lot of industry-specific banks, right? Like a bank just for SaaS companies or a bank for the construction industry. So you basically digitalize an entire industry. You see all the flows. You build a marketplace, and then you finance the flows. And this is possible in a lot of different industries, right? So it's difficult. It's a more difficult business model, but I see this also happening all over. But I still invest in the automotive. I just invested in Mintlist, which is the new Auto One in the US. So I think there's still a lot of disruption to be done there. Um, yeah, so these are the moment my favorites. But actually, Fabrice, at the moment I'm so amazed how many good business models there
Yeah.
are. I'm just I think I met 300 entrepreneurs this year, or maybe 700. I don't know how many. It was one of my most active years. I did 35 investments just this year, and there's just so many beautiful stories, and nobody knows about these stories. Nobody knows about
We're at the
what's
very
happening
beginning of the tech revolution.
all over
When
the
you think
world.
of like most industries, like they're completely not digitized. It's like sub 1% penetration. Everyone's doing things pen and paper. No, bringing all the supply chains online in every industry, in every geography. We're still day one. I mean, I think we're day zero. Everything needs to be built, both in emerging markets and frankly in the developed world.
Yeah, so I think the same. So my dream, Fabrice, is to find 50 unicorns in my life. You have already achieved it, so you are one of my few role models left in this world. So I want to finish my life. I want to have 50 unicorns like Fabrice, and 50 unicorns in business, and I also want to have 50 unicorns in life. And life unicorns are like experiences that you will not forget until the end of your life, like a baby being born, or
Yeah.
going to the North Pole, or this weekend I'm trying to show the Northern Lights to my children. So I want to have this 50 life unicorns and 50 business
What to
unicorns. That's
date?
my
What's
dream,
been the
Fabrice.
craziest life unicorn you've done, or the most interesting, or impressive, or exceptional, or different, maybe?
Yeah, so I think I have an unhealable sickness, which if it's called Bechterew disease, and it breaks my back, and my back is becoming more and more bent. So I thought if I have a sickness that bends my back, I have to do a sport that does the opposite. So I started rowing, and I started rowing more and more because it was helping relieve my back pain. And I'm good at rowing. And because I was an entrepreneur and investor, I was doing a lot of indoor rowing. And then I became top 100, and we became top 100 in the world. I got so excited. So I dedicated an entire year of my life. I lived with the Olympic sports team. I lived 1 year like a sportsman, like an athlete. I was eating right, sleeping right, training right. And I broke 2 world records in 2019 in indoor rowing. And I and I had never back pain since, so I kind of have healed myself from an unhealable sickness by some insane effort in rowing. I'm
It
not sure if
totally
that
counts. I
counts,
mean,
but
as the people in the chat are saying, you're very inspiring, and this is extraordinary. And look, it goes to show the power of grit, determination, ambition, and it expresses itself in all the facets of life. It expresses itself in entrepreneurship and investing, and in the life you lead on a daily basis, and overcoming the challenges you face. So, congratulations on that. It's really impressive.
you invite you invited me to a live unicorn walking to the
Yeah,
North or
I'm
South
walking
Pole.
to the south to the South Pole in January for a few weeks, pulling my sled and my food and my tent and my etc. And I invited you to join. I think it would have been super fun.
Yeah. So these are live. Last year I also recorded the longest podcast in history, 60 hours live without sleeping. So I broke the world record for the longest podcast.
This will not
in
be
history.
broken today. Yeah, don't worry, audience.
I have a lot of endurance, so I can keep going, Fabrice. You just say stop.
Are there any topics we didn't cover or any things we didn't discuss that we should discuss or cover today?
I think a lot of people always ask me, what are the secret sauce? What is the secret? What is the hidden factor? Or what is the factor to success? And I think this is a big mistake to think like that. I think a lot of people want to be scientific about unicorns and break them down like a Swiss watch. What are the elements? How do they influence each other? But unicorns are not a Swiss watch. It's not. It's too many factors, and they're all dynamic, and they're all interacting. There's too many hidden factors, right? So if I want to maximize my chance to find the unicorn, what I do is I invest in a male founder who finished either Stanford or WHU in Europe, who worked a little bit at Boston Consulting Group, and then created a painkiller company in an existing big market, right? And if I combine all the factors that maximize my chance of success to find the unicorn, all the factors that are known, he was born in a village, he had a dream, and he's amazing, I still have a chance if 1 to 300. 1 to 300 is the maximum chance that I can achieve by combining all the known factors so what is the conclusion? There's no other way than to try and to try and to try. And for angels like you have 900 investments, so you have a statistically relevant, but most entrepreneurs and most business angels make life-changing conclusions based on 1 to 5 experiences. And that's the biggest mistake I think people make. There's so many angels that start investing, make 5 investments, 10 investments, and then in year 3, the first companies start dying, and they say, I'm just a bad investor. I'm not good at this. I'm not a good entrepreneur. There's so many people right now having heart attacks because they think they are not good enough. They think it's their fault. They think they are defected. They have not achieved. They have lost money. But in reality, in the big laws of physics, actually nothing happened. It was just an attempt. And it was a good attempt. It had option value. So I think that is my, at the moment, I feel so bad for a lot of people who are struggling. And I just wish that nobody makes any conclusions. Don't make any conclusions until you have lost 1 billion. If you have lost 1 billion, you can make some conclusions.
So we'll see what SBF thinks and what lessons he's learned from losing whatever 20 billion in the last few days.
That's the kind of failure
Yeah.
that really means something. Like a lot of times I invest in I have so much failed investors where I invest again.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Like I invested day bet in Australia. The guy failed the company before, and I do that all the time, unless there's fraud. Like ethical values, like using your client's money is the worst. It's a sin. It's a sin for
Totally
every. It's
agreed.
like it's the top
Using your
10
investors'
rules.
money, using your clients' money, you should never do that for personal purposes. And so if you do something illegal, you're banned. We'll never work with you again. But you're right. Many of the founders who've been successful, we had backed in their first or second company and they failed, and we backed them again because they didn't do anything wrong. The market wasn't there. The product market fit didn't exist. The unit economics would turn out. The market was smaller than we thought it would be. And to your point, they created option value. And by the way, now they've learned lessons. They've learned lessons on how to be better founders and with other people's money and partly ours. And so actually, yeah, backing failed prior founders is an amazing thing. They went to school, right? Like a startup school, ideally on someone else's dime. And now we get to back them and they're going to try it again. And this time they're going to do it right.
Yeah, I actually did an analysis, Fabrice, like you. I like to analyze. So I took all my failed stories, 50 of them, and I took all my success stories, and I tried to find what is the like
Yeah.
my neural network tried to find some correlations. And I looked at, and I found the founders are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly, there's no difference. There's no
Yeah,
difference.
exactly. I totally agreed. I need to run in the next few minutes. So, is there anything we didn't cover yet that you want to mention or say or point out?
Look, Fabrice, talking about unicorns, I can start now and I can keep going for 48 hours non-stop. It's just these stories are so rare and they are so beautiful, and I'm so grateful to be part of even any story. It's so valuable. So I just wish to end this podcast, and thank you so much for this. I just wish everyone to experience this, extraordinary stories that we will remember for the rest of
Wow.
our lives.
Beautiful last words to end on. Thank you, Oscar, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your experiences, and I look forward to having you again. I'm sure in the next few years and hearing about all the great, amazing adventures that you're going to be on, both professional with more unicorns and the life unicorns, starting with Northern Lights with your children in the next week, which sounds beautiful and amazing as well.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Fabrice. Thank you so much. And you're a big inspiration to me.
Well, thank you for that as well.